So pit 3, this was a deep rip in the fall, and then again, like we'll see in the next two, the spring sort of freshened strip till, blades only. And what we're seeing really kind of agrees with that story. So Dan, wouldn't you agree there's a few more cracks in this soil than what we've seen across the site?
Yeah, you can certainly see them. They're much more obvious here. You can see the crack here coming all the way up. There's one over here coming right up into this row. So you can certainly see that the deep rip has broken up the soil, and you can see that this is kind of that deeper plow pan, somewhere around a foot down or 30 centimeters. And you can see that we've broken through that.
Really kind of loosened that up, right?
And we've loosened it up, but we still have these fairly massive, like you can see here, aggregates. This whole chunk wants to fall out. So it's still quite massive, except you've just got some more cracks in between them.
Bigger macropores, and that's kind of what we're seeing with the roots here. I pulled this one out, or I think Dan pulled this one out. And we've got some good tap roots coming, but I wouldn't say they were holding on to anything, because we probably pulled those out of cracks. So this one was pretty easy to pull out compared to the no-till, which I couldn't pull out of the ground at all. So that's kind of what we're seeing. We just had a real long conversation that we probably won't put in this video about you know, kind of the theory behind the tillage implement. But the deep rip, all it's done is it's lifted that profile and broke up the bigger aggregates, but it hasn't done anything on an individual aggregate level. I can find a good one here. There's a good one. You can see all the roots. If I was to break this apart, and when I break this apart, all you're going to see is you know, roots. So it's the roots have done the tillage here instead of the sort of the mechanical tillage, which, you know, separated this chunk of soil from the rest of it, which got your roots down. So the corn looks pretty good. They tell me this was the kind of the earliest corn to emerge. It looked like it was way ahead, and it probably was, because it had all these cracks that it could get down to moisture and get good roots established. But at the end of the day, did the deep ripping really achieve what you wanted to do from a compaction standpoint? And I don't know what you think, Dan, but
yeah, well, it hasn't.
That's a pretty.
Yeah, it hasn't done too much. The aggregates, these massive aggregates, are still pretty hard, and you can't really get through them. And what we were talking about before as well is that you've given yourself, you know, compared to some of the other sites we've looked at today, maybe an extra 5 inches of root growth within those cracks. So you've kind of elongated those cracks. You've gotten through a little bit of the plow pan that's down here, but that's about it. But again, you're still pulling out, you know, these massive chunks. And you know, this is just the plow pan sitting on top. So you can see that that's what the deep rip has done. It's basically broken this off on both sides, and that's kind of it.
So it's a tool in the toolbox for sure, the deep ripper. I don't want to sound like I'm, you know, against it. It's definitely helped this profile to kind of alleviate some of the sort of the massive chunk, but it hasn't gone, you know, the next step to get real good soil health between the rows. It has made some small, just by virtue of the shank running through there, it has made some better aggregate or some smaller aggregates. So that's kind of what we're seeing here, you know, nice and small and broke up. Some of that's the roots doing some tillage for us, but, you know, jam my knife into that, it's they're a little bit bigger. That one's actually not too bad because we got some weed cover crop going, but it's still pretty solid in there. So. And
then again, you know, just to highlight that the soil is very uniform across the site, so they're really comparable soil pits. We get into that same underlying clay that's really modeled. This one's really, really nice and bright. And so again, silty clays holding a lot of water for a long part of the year. And again, the site's is not tiled, right? And so we at least don't think it's been tiled. And so it takes a while for the water to come out of this soil in the spring. So.